Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Sonia and I'd love it if you could subscribe, and if you're already an existing subscriber, welcome back. So for today's video I'm going to be filming my update for the Enjoy Your Eyeshadows project. So this project is created by Deb over at Deb B, and there are a lot of other lovely project planners that are doing this project as well. So what I will do is I'll make sure to leave Deb's channel below and everyone else that is participating in this project. And this project is where you use your eyeshadows. Deb has left this pretty open so you can do what you like with this project. For me, what I'm doing is I'm using an eyeshadow palette every week, and at the end of the week I get a really good idea about what I think to that palette as to whether it's something I want to keep in my collection or something I want to get rid of. And each month Deb does ask for us to choose a peak and a pit. Peak is your favourite palette that you've used, and Pit is the one that you haven't really enjoyed. This project does get updated on the 4th of every month. Now unfortunately I didn't get an update up last month because I just didn't have time, unfortunately, but that just means I have a bigger update to do today because I have quite a few palettes to talk about. So if I missed anything about this project I'll make sure to leave it below. One thing I will say before we start this project, I'm not feeling great today, but I wasn't going to let that stop me. I wanted to make sure I was going to get this up by tomorrow because I'm filming this on the 3rd. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about all of the palettes that I have used over the last few months. Then at the end I will pick 2 palettes I'm going to bring in, and then what I will do is I have my tablet here. I will randomly roll 2 other palettes as well, and that means I'll have 4 palettes to work on over the next month. For the first update, I believe it is either first or second, the ones I was working on was the Cab Cosmetics Day and Night palette, the Huda Beauty Coral Obsessions palette, the Modern Renaissance ABH palette, and then I had the I Heart Revolution Wishes and Dreams palette. So I'm going to talk about these 4 first. I do have another 4 to talk about as well, which I did roll in last month, but I just didn't film it. So I have everything written down here as to what I thought about each of these palettes. So if I'm looking this way as well, that's why. So let's start with the Cab Cosmetics Day and Night palette. So this is what it looks like. I mean, it's a really beautiful looking palette. It looks like the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette. I think that's the one. I'm not sure whether it's trying to dupe that, but it looks like it. So my views on this, I didn't like this palette. I found that the shades were difficult to blend, and I've got a lot of other eyeshadows in my collection that work better than this, that I think I would prefer to use than this. I mean, they are really pretty shades, they are, but I also have these shades in other palettes as well, so it just seems a bit pointless me keeping this, so I have come to the decision that I am going to be decluttering this. It isn't that old, so I can pass it along to somebody else in my life. Because I have so many eyeshadow palettes, I'm pretty spoiled with different formulas, and this one just didn't, unfortunately, perform as well as what I would want. I am going to be decluttering palettes in these updates as well because I'm trying to have a collection that I love, and I know that everything I have is stuff that I do enjoy. I love getting eyeshadow palettes, which is why I have such a big collection, but I do also need to be passing on ones that don't work for me. So that's the first one. This is the one I'm going to be decluttering. The next one I have is the Huda Beauty Coral Obsessions. So this one, if I can get it out of the packaging, this is what this one looks like. I liked this, I enjoyed using this palette, but my problem with this palette, and I say problem, my one issue with it is I'd prefer to have more shimmers in this. There's only 2 and then the rest of them are matte. These are the 2 shimmers. And the shimmers are lovely. At the moment my eyeshadow preference is just putting a shimmer all over the lid and then just that's it. I did enjoy using this though, so this will be staying in my collection. The next one I have is the ABH Modern Renaissance palette. So this is what this one looks like. Before I brought it into this project, I hadn't used it, and I mean I was already pretty late to getting this palette anyway. I've only had it maybe a year, if not a little bit longer. So I hadn't tried it yet. I've got other ABH palettes in my collection as well that I hadn't tried. I really enjoyed using this palette. I loved the looks that I created with it, and I found that the colours blended well. I did find the mattes in this were a bit powdery, but I don't mind that. I really enjoyed using this palette, and this will be staying in my collection as well. And then last but no means least, for this set of 4 palettes, I had the I Heart Revolution Wishes and Dreams palette, and this is what this one looks like. A beautiful, colourful palette full of pinks and neutrals, which is my favourite. I really loved the colours I used in this palette. I didn't use them all, just being honest, but the ones I did use I absolutely loved. The shimmers in this palette as well were really beautiful, and I found that they looked really vibrant on the eye. Absolutely loved using this, and I'm a massive fan of Revolution's formula. I have Revolution, Revolution Pro, Makeup Revolution. I just really love their formula. Yeah, this one is no exception, so this one will definitely be staying in my collection. So I don't think you're going to be surprised at which one is going to be my peak, which is the favourite one I'd used, and it was this one. Like I said, just really loved using this palette, and I can't wait to play with it more. And for my pit, again, I don't think you're going to be surprised, it's the Cab Cosmetics Day and Night palette. This one just didn't perform well enough for me. I was just a bit underwhelmed by it, so, and I'm also decluttering it. So those are the ones I used from April to May, I think. Then the ones I have used from May to now. So very confusing when you miss updates. So I didn't post anything about these, but I still followed the same process what I do now, where I selected 2 and then I randomly rolled 2. So I had the Primark Berry Velvets palette. I had the Jaclyn Hill Morphe Ring the Alarm palette, yep, that's right. I then had the Charlotte Tilbury Copper Charge palette. And then I had the MAC Made My Fortune palette. The packaging on this is beautiful. Starting off with the Primark Berry Velvets palette. I actually bought this palette when I was away in Spain back in 2019. I found this palette to be quite samey. Now, if you'd have spoke to me a few years ago, this would have been like one of my favourite palettes, specifically for this shade. I love that shade. And I still do love the shimmers in this palette. I don't know whether I want to keep it or not. I'm still a little bit on the fence as to whether I want to keep it, and I need to make the decision in this video. The only reason I want to keep it is because of this shade, and I do think I have that shade in this palette, so I don't think I need to keep it. So I do think I'm going to be decluttering this one. I think this one is one I can now say goodbye to. I've had a lot of use out of that. But what I will say is I was blown away by the formula of this. I really did enjoy it. And like I said, it still performs okay. Anyway, that one is going to get decluttered. I've made that decision. The next one I have is the Jaclyn Hill Morphe Ring the Alarm palette. This is what this one looks like. I wasn't impressed with this palette, and I have these shades over and over in my collection. I just didn't find them to be similar like to the Cab Cosmetics one. I just find that they were just okay. They weren't anything that was amazing, and like I said, I have these shades most probably millions of times over in my collection, so I'm actually going to pass this one along as well. The next one I have is the Charlotte Tilbury Copper Charge palette. It looks like this. Loved this palette, and I'm sure no one is surprised that I loved a Charlotte Tilbury makeup product. I'm just really loving like the simple looks at the minute, like I said earlier, just having a shimmer all over the lid and that's done. So you've got 3 shimmers and a matte, and I did use that matte as well, but yeah, just absolutely loved this, and this will absolutely be staying in my collection. And then last but no means least, I had the MAC Made My Fortune palette. This is what it looks like. Really pretty palette, and it looks a lot more loved than what it did when I brought it in. I used, I think, every shade apart from this one and this one, and I loved using that purple. It wasn't as vibrant on my eyes as I was expecting, but I still thought it was really pretty. That could be my own doing though, because I don't use an eyeshadow primer or anything. Loved using this palette as well. So my peak and my pit. So let's start with the peak. So for my peak from these four, I think it definitely has to be the Charlotte Tilbury one. I just loved using this and I didn't feel like I wanted any other shadows. Like this was more than enough for me. So yeah, really, really, really love this palette. And then I think my pit is this one. Again, I just, similar to the Cab Cosmetics one, I just felt like it was just not that good of quality, and I've had this in my collection for so long that I just kept holding on to it thinking I'm sure I'll love it eventually, and no, I don't. It just needs to go. So now we're at the point where I'm going to roll in 4 new eyeshadow palettes. So I already have the 2 that I am rolling in. So the first one is the Natasha Denona Sunrise palette. Needs oiling. This is what this one looks like. I am looking forward to getting stuck into these shimmers. The one thing about this palette that I don't love is that some of the shades are patchy in this, or I find that they are. Glory, this is just so patchy on the eye. The shimmers in this palette are just so pretty, so pretty. So I'm really looking forward to using these over the next week. I do think that this one will stay in my collection, but we'll just see. And then the second one I'm bringing in is the Revolution Pro New Neutral eyeshadow palette. And this one is meant to be a dupe for one of the Huda Beauty palettes as well. I can't remember what this one is called. I'm not going to be using these pressed glitters here, but I will try and use everything else. I do think I will be able to use everything else. Maybe not this one. Just because I don't gravitate towards those type of shades. But yeah, I got this from my sister a couple of Christmases ago and I have used it quite a lot, but I would like to pull it out and use it a bit more. Again, I think with both of these, unless they've gone off, I think I will be keeping these ones in my collection. Now we're at the point where I'm going to roll in 2 eyeshadow palettes. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. So the first one I'm going to be bringing in, that is randomly chosen for me, is the I Heart Revolution Peanut Butter Cup. Okay, that's fine. I do like that palette actually, so let's remove that. And then here's the second one. Then we have Mellow Harmonia. Okay, so what I'm going to go and do is I'm going to go and get those palettes and then I will be back to show you what they look like. Okay, so I'm back. So the first one that was randomly selected for me was the I Heart Revolution Peanut Butter Cup palette. And this is what this one looks like. I do really like this palette. Again, like I said earlier, I love the I Heart Revolution, just Revolution formula in general. I saw my sister use this one time when we was away and I was like, what is that palette? Because it is absolutely beautiful. I'm looking forward to using this as well. I hit pan in this one in a pan those eyeshadows one time, I think. And then the other one I have is from Mellow. This is an eyeshadow quad in Harmonia. Now I haven't used this one. I have used the other 3 that are in for this month, but this one I haven't used. However, I think I'm going to love this one because I think this one's meant to be a dupe for a Charlotte Tilbury palette. So this is what it looks like, and here we go. I mean, they look very samey, but we will see. We'll see what I think, but first impressions looking at this, these 2 shades here look very similar. But we'll try it, we'll see. If they do look the same, then I might just pass this one along as well, but it could look different on the eye. So those are the 4 I'm bringing in. I'm really hoping to be able to do this on a monthly basis, so hopefully, fingers crossed, I don't miss any more updates. I'm not planning on it, but just sometimes life is just too hectic. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm hoping over the next few days I'm going to feel a bit better because I do need to film my project pan as well. That's a little bit late, you know why. I'm just really not feeling great at the minute. So if that's a little bit late, I apologise. I am trying to get everything up on time, but just with life at the minute just being really hectic and me not feeling great, it's not a good combination. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and it means the absolute world to me if you could subscribe if you don't already. And until my next video, thank you for coming by. See you later.